All right, we are now. Do you get a little notice when it's recording?
Yeah, a little icon pops up in the corner there.
Good. Thanks for reminding me, because I will always forget that unless somebody tells me to do it. Cool. Alex, Sarah, how are you guys doing with Hebrew? Feeling good, or is it not clicking, or any questions or struggles?
I felt like last week the sentences started making a lot of sense, and then I feel like this week, like adding verbs, and I just forgot how to do sentences again. Like it felt like it really clicked, and then it was like I don't know what happened. But yeah, I don't think my sentences are as good this week.
Okay. Yeah, that's not unusual. When we try to learn something new in a language, the whole thing, the house that we built just kind of falls apart when we try to shove too much inside of it. So that's not unusual. We'll try to piece it back together. So yeah. I'll try not to get discouraged by that, although it obviously can be frustrating. Hey, Brian, how are you?
Good. How are you?
Good. How's your Hebrew been this week?
Slow. Very slow.
Any particular concerns, or has it just been a slow week?
It's just the memorization game, basically. Cramming too much in.
Yeah, it is a lot to put into our heads. So the memorization is probably the hardest part. Trying to stay on top of that. Jacob reminds me of this regularly, that we need to be spending time in Hebrew every day, multiple times a day. It's those 10, 15, 20-minute study times that are most effective. So I understand adult lives don't always make that possible. But if you can, the best way to make your brain memorize this much stuff is just to hit it 2, 3, 4 times a day, very short study sessions, different types of study sessions, like Jacob said, in different places. And that will help your brain retain it. When we show up in class, that's just really the best way to do it. So
okay.
That might be what you're already doing, but I'll throw that out there because I forget to do that regularly.
Yeah.
Cool. All right. Well, we're going to go through lessons. Where are we? Lessons 19, 20, 21, 22. We're not going to talk much about lesson 19 or lesson 22. We're going to focus on 20 and 21. Those are the heavier grammatical lessons. And then we'll talk about the other two in more detail tomorrow as needed. And then we'll get into reading for tomorrow, which is fun. Joseph's story. And a little more advanced storytelling, a little bit closer to actual biblical Hebrew. So we take a step every week in our readings. That's the funnest part, I think, for me, and I think probably for all of us, is the actual stories. So let's go ahead and just dive into our grammar for today so we can get prepared for tomorrow. I'm going to share my screen. And let's see here. There we go. I don't think it's week 8, but that's what I have on. So we're going to talk about bound nouns and the irreal perfect. So bound nouns and irreal perfect. When I say both of those things, neither of them just jump out and start making sense automatically. What a bound noun is, we have no idea, normally speaking. And what an irreal perfect is also, even though these are English words, they just are not going to make much sense to us. So I get that, and we're going to spend a lot of time talking about what these are. First, we got to talk a little bit about how grammar works and English grammar and that sort of stuff. And then we will try to see how Hebrew fills in these different areas of meaning within language. So first off, bound nouns. So a bound noun is essentially putting the word of into the sentence. So in English, if I want to say son of Abraham, I put one noun in front of another noun and put of in the middle. And that just joins the two together, saying that these two nouns are related. And we put of in for English. In Hebrew, there is no word for of. We put two nouns next to each other. We change the first noun a little bit, and that tells us that they are bound together. And so in English, we will always add in the word of. In Hebrew, the word of does not exist except in grammar. So there's no separate word for it. It only exists in the fact that the first noun has a little bit of an addition to it or a little change to it. Maybe the vowels have changed or something has been added to tell us that it's connected to the following noun. So we just use this very simple term, bound, because they are bound together. They're tied together. That's the most basic way of speaking about it. Our grammarians in our textbook throw us some more challenging words to use to talk about these things. So let's go to lesson 19, or is it lesson 20? It's lesson 20. So on page 64, let's see here, our authors tell us, let me just read it. The relationship between the bound word and the following non-bound form is called simikut. It consists of two elements, the bound word, or nismak, followed by the host word, so make. All three of these Hebrew words that you see on that page are coming from the root samek mem kaf, which means to support, samak, to support. So we're using this Hebrew word to talk about this idea that one noun is supporting the other noun, or they're both working together in a team. I like just to call it a bound noun because the word bound gives us a clue in English to what we're looking for. The word in Hebrew, samak, gives us a clue as well, but then you have to memorize the Hebrew word just to talk about the grammar. So we're going to be using the English bound, although the grammarians in our textbook use these Hebrew words here in the chart that you see on my screen on the right. So the so make and the nismak. This is the unbound form on the top row, and then the nismak is the bound form. And that is the masculine. And then the feminine, we have the so make, the unbound form, and the nismak, the bound form. So the bound form is always the first one in the sentence. So we tie it together with the following noun, the unbound noun. So simply put, in Hebrew, if you want to say blank of blank, you have to do that grammatically by changing the first noun. Son of Abraham, just as son and Abraham sat right next to each other. And we changed the first noun to match this column here, the nismak column. So let's look at these nouns. We've memorized all of these, devar and devarim and devarayim. What's the difference? Let's look at just at the singular. What's the difference between the regular form and the bound form? What do you see?
The vowels.
Yeah, exactly right, Katie. Or Julie, sorry. The vowels have changed. So we notice the first A vowel has been downgraded to a shva. The second A vowel has been downgraded to a patak. And this is a very common feature when we are modifying words. If we lengthen a word or if we join two nouns together, the vowels will shorten. So we go from two long A vowels. You might remember that the comets is a long vowel. When we attach it to another word, both of these vowels get shortened. The long comets at the beginning gets shortened all the way down to a shava, which is not a vowel at all. And then the long comets in the second syllable here get shortened to the short A vowel, the patak. So we're going to be noticing these. This is a common feature. And this is the only thing that you can look for when you are looking at a masculine singular noun, is the changing of the vowels. All right, so that's your one clue that the first noun is bound to the second noun, is that these vowels have changed. The clues are much more obvious when we get to the plural, thankfully. So let's look at this. We've already talked about the plural masculine noun getting this eem ending. The vowels have also changed. Notice that the long A vowel has shortened all the way down to a shava. That's because the word has lengthened. When a word lengthens, the vowels get shortened. This vowel stayed the same, but now we have eem on the end. Look at the bound noun. What's the main thing that you notice that's different between the unbound form and the bound form?
The ve is short, like it stops. So then the rame, it becomes rame. So they're two separate words, kind of. Is that right?
Well, so
Or that also the
yeah. So this is pronounced div-ra-rame, and this is div-re. So
it's dev.
Changed because the vowels. We've noticed that both of these vowels are now different. There's a whole process that these vowels went through to get to this point, but all you really need to be aware of is that they've changed, right? How about on the end here? What do you notice is different?
There's no M.
Exactly. The mem is gone, right?
Mem, I should say.
The main thing that you need to be aware of when a masculine plural noun gets put into the bound form, the mem falls off. So we notice that the mem is gone. All the vowels have changed, right? All three of these vowels have shifted into something different. But the main marker here is that the mem is gone. So if you look at div-re and you see this yod hanging on the end there with the tsere, you know that this is now in the bound form and it's connected to the following noun. There must be a noun following this. So that's your first clue. So when you have nouns side by side, clue number one. Clue number two is that the mem has fallen off. And clue number three is the vowels have changed. So all three of those things tell us that these two nouns that we're going to be looking at are bound together, and we need to supply the word of in English. All right. I'll pause there. Any questions, comments? All right. Let's take a look at the feminine forms. So Adama, we talked a lot about how hey is added onto the end of the basic form to make it feminine. Right? You add the hey. So when we look at Adama, pretty clear to us that, hold on, I'm going to mute a microphone. That was a little loud. When we see a hey on the end of a noun, it's pretty clear to us by this point that this is a feminine noun. And most nouns that end in this ah sound are feminine. When we want to make a feminine noun plural, we change the ah into ot. Ot. Ah, da, mot. So this ot ending tells us it's feminine plural. So what do we do to make a feminine noun bound? What happens? Well, this hey turns into a tav. So instead of adoma, we have admat. So the hey morphs into a tav, and that tav tells us that it's bound to the following noun. The feminine form of this, the only thing that's different is the vowels. Look at these vowels down here. The vowels have changed. So they've gone through a long process to change from this to this, but essentially we had this chataf patak shorten all the way down into a non-existent vowel. This comet shortened down into a shva. But you can't have two shvas at the beginning of a word, so we put a patak back in there. So anyways, all these vowels got reduced down to just this singular vowel right here. That's the only clue that this is bound to the following noun. So a lot of the times, these clues that we keep talking about aren't as obvious as we'd like them to be. So we're going to rely a little bit on context and the main fact that two nouns are sitting right next to each other. So when you see two nouns right next to each other, the first question you ask is, are these bound together? Do I need to add the word of in between them to make sense in English? And if your answer to that is yes, then you can double check your work by looking for vowel changes and changes to the end of the word. All right. So those are the bound nouns. If we looked over here at the dual side, which are very rare, we notice that they are the same as the plural, right? So divrei, divrei, adamot, admatayim. So this one isn't the same as the feminine plural. It's actually just going to keep the masculine dual form. There's no such thing as a feminine plural bound noun. It always ends up in this masculine form. This one here is also masculine, or this one is feminine, but it looks masculine, right? Look, so admate divrei, right? The same ending. So that's a little bit tricky, but there's so few dual forms in Hebrew, and they're even rarer in the bound state that at the end of the day, you're just not going to have to worry about it. There might be 20 of them in the entire Hebrew Bible, which has over 1 million words. So it's kind of something we don't need to worry about. So unfortunately, you have to memorize a few more things. This column here and this column right here need to be put into our heads. So just 4 more forms that we add on. Luckily, they're just built off of the unbound form. So they're just built off of that with some minor changes. All right. Well, let's talk a little bit more about these bound forms. When you have 2 nouns side by side, oftentimes they're attached by a makef. We've seen this line, as it was talked about, I think, in lesson 7, way back when. We didn't talk much about it because it's just simply put in between 2 nouns. We also didn't talk about it because it's inconsistent. So we say it's often attached by a makef. Well, it's often, but not always attached like that. So it's not something we can rely on. So when it's there, you know that this is Devar of Adonai. Devar of Adonai, the word of the Lord, right? So this noun is bound to this noun. The makef is a clue that is helping us. So when it's there, you know I'm going to put of in, right? If it works in English, you throw of in there. When it's not there, then we have to look for other forms. So often attached by makef. Let's take a look at this. Whoa. Sorry, my presentation went a little crazy. The first noun cannot take a definite article. If the second noun is definite, then the first inherits the definiteness. So if we have 2 nouns that are bound, you do not say, you do not have a definite article on the first noun. It can't. You can never put a definite article on a bound noun. You can on the second noun. So if you have the second noun, if that second noun is definite, then the first noun has to be definite as well. So the definiteness will move forward along the train, so to speak. So this noun is definite, and it makes this noun definite as well. This isn't a word of the Lord. This is the word of the Lord. We only know that because Adonai is necessarily definite because it's a personal name. All personal names are grammatically definite. So we'll talk more about that tomorrow, but what you need to know is that the bound noun cannot take a definite article. Well, let's go ahead and look at some sentences and see if we can figure out what they mean. I'm going to try to adjust your faces so I can see your faces at the same time. It's kind of hard to get this picture in the right spot. Let's try this instead. Okay, I got a whole nother screen over here. Your faces are over there. All right. I won't do it. Stay there. Okay. I just won't do it. I can't look at you. So if you have any questions, you need to unmute yourself. I can't look at your faces while I do this, unfortunately. Okay, so let's translate bait together. So Yefet, Yashav, Ba'ahale, Shem. What is Yefet or Yefet? Does anybody recognize that word? It's in this gray font. So when we have a word in the gray font, we know that it has to be a personal name, a proper name. So Yefet is Japheth, or Jepheth. I don't know exactly how we get it in English. So this is personal name. So, and this is subject of our verb. So we look at this, we see a verb, this comments in the Patak. Does anybody know Yashav? What Yashav means? Yashav means to dwell, or to sit, but here it means to dwell. So Yefet dwelt. What is bait? Anybody know bait?
In or at.
Good. In ahal. The root of this is ahal. Anybody? Or oh hell is how you learned it.
Was that tent?
It is tent. It's it's hell to live in tents, right? If you don't like camping, oh hell, I have to go camping. Are you kidding me? Right. So that's how I remember that. So Yefet dwelt in tents. So look at the ending here and compare it to what you see on page 64 in your textbook. So is this masculine or feminine, singular or plural? What does it look like? Just look right at this ending here.
It looks dual or plural.
Good. It's either dual or plural, right? And masculine, exactly right. So we know it's not dual because tents don't go in a dual form because they don't come in pairs normally, right? We got one tent, we got two tents, we got three tents. It doesn't really matter. So remember that dual forms only occur with items that come in pairs, like our eyes or our hands or stuff like that, right? So Yefet dwelt in tents, and it's in the bound form. Notice the mem has fallen off, and also notice the makef here. So we have to put of in. We'll put of right there. Yefet dwelt in the tents of, and what is this? This should be in a gray form. It's kind of a font issue in the textbook.
Oh, Shem.
Of Shem, exactly right. So Yefet dwelt in the tents of Shem. In Hebrew, it's Shem. Good. So these are our two bound nouns. We have two nouns in a row, and we have all the markers of the bound nouns. We have two nouns side by side. We have the mem has fallen off. We have vowel differences. We even have the makef there. All of these signs are saying just add in of in between the two nouns. So in the tense of Shem. All right. Any questions about how that sentence works? All right. So when we're trying to build a Hebrew sentence, remember we need basically all the same things that we need in an English sentence. We have our subject, followed by our verb, and followed by our object. This is our object or indirect object over here. Well, let's take a look at Gimel. It's a longer sentence. Avram, what is Avram?
Abram.
Abram, good. Avram, Kara. So remember, we have our subject. If our subject is first, we're going to expect our verb to come next. So here's our verb, Kara. Anybody know Kara?
Is it called?
It is, exactly right. Abram called B'Shem. So what is bait?
In or at.
In, at, or on.
On.
Can be on. There's a bait is one of those that has like multiple, it's got a whole long line of definition. So Abraham called on. So we had shame up here, but this was a personal name. This was a person's name up here. Down here, it's actually a noun. So what does shame mean?
Name.
Good. Abraham called on the name. And then we have another noun, right? This noun and this noun side by side. That's the only clue here that these two are bound together. Because this is a masculine singular noun. We don't have any clues. The vowel hasn't even changed. So the only clue is that they're side by side. On the name of the Lord. We have another bait. It's not on this time. It's probably going to be in. In Eretz. We probably all should know Eretz by now.
Land.
Land. Good. And when we look at Eretz, we don't have any markers. Let's look at our chart here. Well, the chart isn't going to help us too much because of the vowels, but it has no ending. So without an ending, what form do you think it's going to be? What's the one form that doesn't have an ending at all?
Masculine?
That's right. Masculine form. So Eretz is an irregular noun. It's technically feminine, but it looks masculine, and that's all that matters right now. So because it is it looks masculine, it's not going to have a bound ending. So the ending does not change on Eretz. So we have two clues that this is a bound noun. One, it is in front of another noun. Kanaan is a noun. and eretz is in front of it. So that's one clue that it's bound. Second clue is this makef. That makef lets us know that these two are bound together. So Abraham called on the name of the Lord in, how would we translate this?
In the land of Canaan.
In the land of Canaan. Exactly right. So we have two sets of bound nouns. Here's Shem Adonai, name of the Lord, and Eretz Canaan, land of Canaan. All right. Let's take a look at one more example here. Mitzrim is a form of Mitzrayim. Anybody remember Mitzrim? It's a proper noun. Doesn't sound anything like the English proper noun equivalent. So Mitzrim is Egyptians. So the Egyptians, this is our subject. Right at the very beginning, we get our subject. So what follows immediately after our subject?
Verb.
Subject, verb, object. Exactly. Subject. Here's our verb. Anybody remember what this et is? Et?
The direct object marker.
That's right. Direct object. So we have our subject, our verb, and it's marking our direct object. So that is a typical order in Hebrew of our sentence, and that's how we build them. Subject, verb, object. So even if you didn't know any of these words, you would know that this is the subject, this has to be a verb, and then what follows after the verb is our object. And all of this is actually our object. All right, so let's go back to the beginning. Mitzrim is Egyptians, and here's our verb. Let's go ahead and try to parse out our verb together. So we ask first, what is our binyanim, or binyan? What is the one binyan that we've learned so far?
Call.
That's right. This is a call. We know it's a call because it's the only one we've learned so far. Okay, so it's call. What's our conjugation? We've only learned one.
Perfect.
Okay. So this is a call perfect. Now the questions get more complicated. We need to know the person, number, and gender. So let's find our table. It is on page 55. No. It's on page, this one is plural. So let's look on page 62. We're going to talk about the plural form tomorrow. I didn't want to add too much grammar for today. So this is a plural form. Go ahead and look on page 62. The top left of that first diagram there, you see the oo. Oo is added onto the end of a verb to make it plural. So this is third person plural. So the Egyptians, this has been added on. If this has been added on, what's our root? What three letters make up our root?
Lamed, Kof, Het.
That's right. Lamed, Kof, and Het. Anybody remember le kach?
It was to seize or to grasp.
That's right. Good. The Egyptians, they grasped, or probably here seized. The Egyptians seized. We don't translate et. It just tells us that this is the object of the verb. So the Egyptians seized. What is this here?
Sarah.
Good. The Egyptians seized Sarah. And then we have Eshet Avram. We have two nouns in a row. We know that the first one is bound. Let's look on page 64 at our chart. What's the normal word for woman? I just was going to say it in Hebrew. What's the normal word for a woman?
Isha.
Good, Isha. So if we look at our chart, Isha, what is it, masculine or feminine? It's kind of a straightforward question. Isha. Isha is woman, so it has to be feminine, or most likely to be feminine. So it ends in ah. The ah ending lets us know that it's feminine, but it's no longer Isha, it's Eshet, and it has the tav on the end. So looking at our chart, look at the feminine singular column. Adomaj changed to admat with that tav. And Isha is changed to Eshet with the tav. That tells us that this is bound. And it is bound to the following noun. Avram. Avram must obviously be Abraham or Abram. So these are bound together. Wife of Abraham or woman of Abraham. You might remember that there's not a separate word for husband and wife in Hebrew. It's just man and woman. So this is literally woman of Abraham. And in English, we would say wife, right? Okay, so the Egyptians, they took Sarah, the wife of Abraham. All right, so these are our two bound nouns. The two markers that these are bound together is the fact that there's two nouns in a row, and that the hey of Isha has changed to a tav. That tav is the marker that they're bound together, and we add in of. All right, so Mitzrim lokhu et Sarai eshet Avram. The Egyptians took Sarah, the wife of Abraham. All right, so that's the bound nouns. We're looking for clues to tell if the nouns are bound together. Clue number one, do we have two nouns in a row? If the answer to that is yes, then you most likely have nouns that are bound together. Clue number two, you look at the end of your word. Has the end of the word changed in any way from what you would expect it to be? Has the men fallen off, or has the hey turned into a tav? If yes, then you definitely have a bound noun and you add the word of. Clue number three are vowels. So have the vowels changed? And if the vowels have changed, then you probably have a bound noun and you add in the word of. All right. And then also, is there a makef? If there's a makef there, they have to be bound. They're definitely bound together. All right. So we got four different things that we can look for. Two nouns in a row, the ending, the vowels, and makef. All right. All those things will help you identify if you have bound noun or not. What questions do you have about bound nouns? All right. We're going to cover it again tomorrow, and we'll keep practicing it tomorrow. So if you have any lingering questions, or if it makes sense now and by tomorrow it doesn't make sense any longer, then we'll cover it again. So we don't need to worry too much about it. All right. So the next thing is the irreal perfect. The irreal perfect is something that we probably never learned about in English grammar. Although we do it all the time, we just do it differently than Hebrew does. We have to talk about it in Hebrew because of the way that Hebrew brings the irreal perfect into existence. In English, it's much more kind of straightforward, I suppose. So this is it's not really intuitive for English speakers. So with all that said, let's talk about what an irreal perfect is. The perfect has two moods. So it's kind of a moody conjugation. It can have two different moods. One mood is that it is talking about things that have happened that actually have taken place. So when it is in the real mood, these things have really happened. When it is in its second mood, we call it the irreal, and these events have not actually happened. They might happen. Maybe they'll happen. Maybe they should happen, or they shall happen, or they even must happen, but they have not actually taken place. All right? We still use the perfect because we're talking about the whole event. If I say sit down and I put that into the perfect, that is, I'm saying you must sit down, right? And I'm talking about the whole event. I want you to take your bottom and I want you to put it into your seat. Imagine talking to my kid here, right? I want this action to take place. I don't add in the word must. There's no word in Hebrew for must. I use the irreal perfect. All right. So all of these words, might, may, should, shall, must, and any other ways that we can make an irreal event aren't in Hebrew made with words. They're made with grammar. All right. So just to review, the perfect is very moody. It has two different moods. It can talk about events that have happened, that have actually happened. I have sat down. Or it can talk about events that Might happen. I might sit down. Maybe I'll sit down. Should I sit down? I shall sit down. I must sit down, and many other examples we could come up with. All right. So how do we do this? How in Hebrew do we change a perfect from real to irreal? We do it with word order. All right. So in Hebrew, we change the word order, and that will tell us that we have an irreal perfect. So we're just looking at examples of sentences where we had our subject, our verb, and our object, and that's the standard word order, right? Subject, verb, object in Hebrew. We've talked about how the subject and the verb can switch for a number of reasons. This is one of those reasons. If we have an irreal perfect, the subject and the verb will switch. And I like to think of this as an emphasis situation, that we want to emphasize the verb in some special way, so we move it to the front of the sentence. We want to emphasize it because we want to add in some extra meaning to it. Most of these words are emphasis type words like must and should. Some of them are a little softer. But we want to focus on this verb in a special way, so we move it to the beginning of the sentence, and we need to focus on it in a special way by changing it from real to irreal in this situation. All right, so word order can help. That's not always the case. If you read through lesson 21, the authors tell us that word order isn't always reliable, so it's a little ambiguous sometimes. Sometimes there's a vav attached to the verb. If you see a perfect verb with a vav on the front, it is very likely an irreal perfect, and you have to add in an extra word like might or shall or must. All right? So if you have a verb at the beginning of a sentence, and if there's a vav on the front of it, then it's most likely an irreal perfect. And the perfect's talking about an event that is conditional in some way. All right. Let's see, I think I have some examples. Nope, I didn't give us any examples. We have lots of examples on page 67. So if you got your textbook there, let's just look at one example. Let's tackle the first one. So in the middle of page 67, Aleph, we have Vashomru Derek Adonai. So what is at the beginning of this sentence? The very first thing that we see is a verb, right? So that's the first clue that we're dealing with an irreal perfect. The verb's been moved to the front. What's attached to that verb? There's a vav attached to it, and that's the second clue that we're dealing with a special type of perfect. And then we have everything that follows. So the verb's at the front. So, and they guarded the word of the Lord. That's how we would translate this if this was a regular perfect. And they guarded the word of the Lord. But since we moved the verb to the beginning, we know it's irreal. We have to add in one of these helping words. Might, may, should, shall, must. One of these is going to help this make better sense. If we added in should, and they should guard the word of the Lord, or they shall guard the word of the Lord. Must is really nice. And they must guard the word of the Lord. I'm using guard. Shamar can also be translated as keep. And they must keep the path of the Lord. Derek is path. You probably all were wondering. And they must keep the path of the Lord. All right. So when the verbs move to the front and a vav is attached to that verb, then we're probably dealing with an irreal perfect, and we're going to add in one of these words. All right. So those are the two grammar pieces I want to talk about today, just those two lessons, lesson 20, lesson 21. We'll get to lesson 19 and 22 tomorrow. I just wanted to move through this slowly, and we'll go back through it tomorrow and look at some more examples. The irreal perfect, I want to really emphasize, is a contextual issue, right? So if you're reading along and you're not really sure if you should deal with it as a real or irreal, or if you should add in these words, context is going to help us a lot, almost all the time. It's very obvious in the context that we need to add in some of these extra words. So if you're not sure about the word order and you're not sure about this conjunction involved, you're just reading along, the context is really going to be helpful. All right, so we can just focus on that aspect of this for now. So we did bound nouns and irreal perfect. What questions do you have about the irreal perfect? Do you have any?
So I know that the subject-verb order can flip-flop if there's a grammatical word like asher or something.
Yep.
Are there ever going to be any confusing moments where we might have a grammatical word like that, and it could also be an irreal perfect?
Yep, exactly right. So that's why I'm emphasizing context, because that's exactly the situation that we're kind of afraid of, is this ambiguity that happens because we know the verb must move to the front of the sentence if it's preceded by a grammatical term like a share or a key or many others. So then we have that, or one marker of this is gone. Our second marker is also gone. We can't add a conjunction after the grammatical term to the verb. So neither of our markers of the irreal are helpful at all. So then we have to rely on the third marker, which is context. So you just don't know until you look at what came before and what comes after on how you should translate it. All right, so great question, Jonah. So what it comes down to is when you come across the perfect, you try to translate it as if the event has actually happened. And if the context isn't allowing for that, then you try to translate it as if it were a conditional perfect or an irreal perfect. And if that makes better sense in the translation, then you give that a go. You give it a try, all right? So it's all based on context if we come across that situation. Good question. Any other thoughts, questions on the irreal perfect? All right. Well, that brings us right up to 10 o'clock, so I can hang out for a little bit. If you have any questions about the homework, any other grammatical issues, or if you just want to practice for a little bit, work on the exercises, I'm happy to sit here with anybody that wants to study a little bit. Otherwise, lehitraot, we'll see you later. Toda rabah, thank you very much.
Can we get a preview of the quiz?
Can we get a preview? Sure. We got to stop doing this because I realized that it is recorded, so you actually get the quiz. But hey, what do I care? It is the midterm next, not tomorrow, but next week. So that you won't get a preview of.
Isn't the midterm us talking?
That's part of your midterm.
Oh, there's a test part too?
Yeah. It's like the quizzes, just a little bigger.
Of like everything we've done up to this point. Ew.
Yeah, so all of our quizzes are actually built that way so that they're covering everything that we've been doing. So we don't let anything go, right? We're always working with vocab that we covered in the past. We're always working with the grammar that we covered in the past. So it's just like taking, instead of one, kind of short page, it's a little bit larger for the midterm. We'll talk a lot about it tomorrow so that we're well prepared. But yeah, let's quickly, I haven't even looked at the quiz, so at least not this year. Let's take a look. No, not that one, this one. There's nothing in my folder here. There they go, quizzes. What quiz are we on, 5? That was last week, yeah. So this week. So it's dealing with the reading. The quizzes are always on the reading as well as the midterm. We'll be focusing on the reading. So we get pictures from the reading and questions about the pictures, right? So answer the questions. So these questions are all just, I'm not going to translate them for you here, but all these questions are asking something about this picture, and you try to answer the question. Remember that we're looking for complete sentences. And because we've learned verbs, we're going to be looking for you to use a verb in your answer. the thing that you should note is that the question gives you the verb that you can use, right? So that's a really part of how these quizzes work, is that a lot of your answers can be taken from the question. So if you can translate the question, you just need to modify it a little bit to make your answer. All right. Jacob and I have also been talking about this. For this week, we're looking just for one answer, but moving forward, we're going to start looking for multiple answers when appropriate. So as an example, quiz 4 says, what's in the tree? There are 2 or 3 possible answers to that question. Right now, we're looking for one, but on the midterm and after, we're going to start looking for multiple answers. So what's in the tree? We have fruits in the tree. We have a snake in the tree. So pari ba'etz, nachash ba'etz. So just so that you know, we're going to be looking for multiple answers. You can start preparing for that. But this week, just one. You need to use a verb in your answer. Also work on your vowels. Make sure your vowels are looking good. Make sure that your verb is appropriate, that it's third masculine singular or second feminine plural, whichever is the appropriate verbal form for your sentence. All right. What other? Yeah. Okay. Well, there's the quiz. Any questions on that? Okay. Well, you all can take off. We'll see you tomorrow, 6 o'clock. If anybody wants to study or has any questions, you feel free to hang out, and I'd be happy to work with you. Otherwise, see you later. Later. Julie, are you? You're muted. Did you have a question or a comment? Here, I'll unmute you.
You muted me? Okay.
I muted you.
Sorry. Oh, you muted me. Okay, good. So, yeah, on the reading, page 17. Just on Aleph, the first one, I didn't even know what that, it's like what is that, the noun there? Elohim, Amar.
17. You're on bait, exercise bait.
No, actually oh yeah, bait. Yeah.
Okay, so exercise bait, and then question Aleph. Yes?
Yes.
Okay, good. So it starts
Right.
Yeah. We just got to make sure we're talking about the same thing.
Yeah. So it's like Elohim, Mar, La, Hayit. Is that just the verb like what we just have done today? Is that what we should?
No. So Elohim Amar L'Chayot said to the Hayot, to the Chaya. So if you look, this actually is a vocab word from the first reading, I believe. So look on page 7.
Okay. And just Hayot.
It comes from Chaya.
Chaya, the animals?
Yeah, so wild animals.
Okay.
God spoke to the wild animals, but it's Hayot now because it's plural.
Okay, which is just what we did today, right?
Well, we talked about plural nouns in a previous.
Being bound. Oh, we did in that. Okay.
We talked about
it's in a previous class. Okay.
Yeah, so we did talk about plural nouns a while back. So when you make a feminine noun plural, you add ot. You take the hey off and you add ot onto the end.
Okay. I should know that, but somehow I couldn't figure. I was not sure what that was.
Yeah. Well,
okay.
When you put new stuff in, old stuff falls out. So we just got to keep revisiting it.
Okay. And so where do you know where that's like early on?
Plural nouns. Let's take a look. Table of contents is probably the fastest way. Nouns, plural and dual. Lesson 10, page 41.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Take a look.
Okay, so the feminine, so their animal is feminine. Is that right?
Yep, that is right. So look at Susa. Susa is feminine.
Mm-hmm.
Singular. Susot is feminine plural. That ot has taken the place of the ah.
Okay. I didn't look this week on the Quizlet. So are there these words in the Quizlet? I didn't notice that before, but I haven't looked. Like our vocabulary words and a lot of the verbs, they are in there.
Well, all of the vocab is in Quizlet. Which other?
I don't know. I'll check it out again. I just didn't quite get to that, but again, the pronunciation is kind of huge for me, probably to practice. I was kind of caught up with just getting this translated again, and then feeling like I was comfortable with that, and then now kind of trying to memorize it. So I'm kind of I feel like I'm behind this week.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know if you go over any of the homework, or there's an opportunity just to see if I'm even getting that right.
Yeah, we can do that now. We could do it
Okay.
before or after class tomorrow. It's really up to you.
Okay. Well, I'm good now if you're willing to go through that, but it takes me a while just to figure out where I am.
Yeah, no problem. I got until 10:30.
Okay.
Let me just check with Sarah. Sarah, did you have a specific question, or were you just hanging out to do some more
I
stuff?
just listen. I don't know.
Yes,
For the one that we just talked about, though, I guess I was confused. Like, am I translating it or am I responding to that question? Or not to the question, but God spoke to the wild animals. Like, was my
it says it's like true or false.
That's true.
Did God speak to the wild animals?
And then I just say he did. Like, I would say yes, he did, or no, he did not.
Yeah, so you see right after the statement, God spoke to the wild animals, there's a blank line. What I want you to do is put emet there for true, or lo emet for not true, and then say why. God didn't speak to the wild animals. God spoke to ish va'isha, to the man and to the woman.
Oh.
Right?
Gotcha.
Whatever you did there is fine, right? At the end of the day, as long as you're doing something there, that's all that, as far as I believe Jacob can respond to this.
Yeah.
Jacob's looking at it, he's like, did you write some Hebrew words down? Right?
Yeah.
Because these exercises are not self-explanatory. It's a good reminder for me that we should look at these before the end of class every week so that we know what we should be doing before we actually go and do them.
Yeah.
So we'll make sure we do that moving forward.
So just for sentences, and Julie, I'm sorry, this isn't helpful for you, but
no, this is totally fine. This is perfect.
If we say like Abraham, he walked up the mountain, like I would do Abraham, and then I would do the to walk up. I think that's the hala.
Exactly right. Yes.
Yeah, hala. And then I do he first, like the who, hala, and I don't change the ending because it's in masculine. Is that, and then R for mountain, is that right?
Good, so let's type it on the screen so we all can see. I'm going to share my screen. Desktop, share. Let me get a Word doc out. I'm actually going to use this program. It's a little easier to type in Hebrew. Okay, so Avram, halak. Need a final cough. Abraham walked. You wanted to say up the mountain or to the mountain? Let's see here.
Let's do to the mountain. I don't know how to say up.
A little easier. Yep. Abraham walked le, or you could say el. Either one. El.
R.
That's right.
So I don't have to put who. I don't have to do Avram, who. I don't have to do Abraham. He walked up the mountain.
That's correct. You do not need the pronoun here. You could put the pronoun first. Hu, halak, el, har. He walked up to the mountain, right?
So in the book where it has the verb, they only have that in there because they're trying to show us like he, she, da-da-da, right?
Well, the verb is there to tell us what type of action and who's doing the action, right? So we need our subject, we need our verb, and then here's the object that follows it.
Okay, I was just thinking because on page 55, I don't know how to show that to you. It like shows that it does like the who, and then it has the verb on it. So they're just trying to show you the ending. That's where I was getting mixed.
Yes, good, exactly right. So they're building a sentence kind of like this here, where instead of actual person's name, we have a pronoun standing in its place, and it can act as the subject. But here, you're exactly right that this is just an example to help us connect the two, that the pronouns and the verbs are connected, and we see the similarities between them. So that's an outstanding clarification question. Yeah, you take the pronoun off and replace it with your subject. That's right.
Okay. Because in Spanish, you keep it.
Aha, yeah. Let's see here. So both of the two top sentences are good. Avram, hu, halak is bad. That's a bad sentence. We put a star by it when it's bad. So this is not grammatical. You would not have a personal noun, a proper noun, and a pronoun side by side in Hebrew.
Right. That makes sense.
Verb. That's really good. Great question. Good. Okay. What else?
I'm trying to think if there's anything else. I mean, I've done all the work.
Cool.
I just have no idea if it's, like if I'm on target. Some of them are, and I can't see. I try to star them, but I don't see anything right now. But it's just questions about how maybe the vowel changes a little bit. But I guess that's just practice.
Sure. Well, we can go through some of the homework if you would like. I have 15 minutes.
I have to go to a meeting. Sorry, guys.
All right.
Okay.
See ya.
Okay. Well, since that's on the reading of 19.
19, R19.
Yeah, so then I can just go through. I just have really basic, on the last part of it. Let's see. This is Vav, on R19. Are you with me there?
Yep.
Okay. So then those are just, writing vocabulary questions. So, Ma Avraham Havesh. Is that right? I mean, I can help with the pronunciation.
Sure. I'm going to try to write it out on the screen and see.
So like what Avraham?
I
can't remember what it was. So it would be, what did he saddle? Is that just as simple as that? Is that correct? So Ma Avraham Havesh.
So what Abraham, what did Abraham saddle? That's a great sentence.
Okay. So then you'd say Abraham Havesh Hamor, the Hamor, or just the Hamor.
Let's see, Hamor. It's Hamor, right? With a chet.
Okay. Yes, with a het. So Hamor. That's so hey Hamor.
Hamor.
Right?
Abraham saddled the
Donkey. Hey Hamor.
That's great.
Yeah. Okay. So hey Hamor, and then let's see, what else do I have? Something. Oh, and then I would just do the with the sheva, the vav, with the to say then he walked with Isaac,
So
or
he walked with Isaac.
So and he grabbed Isaac, I guess is what I used. I said lakach, or lahach. Yitzhak.
Lakach.
Okay, is that right?
Yep, and he seized Isaac's name.
Isaac. So he bound the donkey, and so that's fine.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. I'm with you then. Okay. Trying to think if there's any particular question. One I had was then maybe I was looking at this other one. If I said, is it where he, that's where is like hayata. Hayata is where. Hayata who, where did he?
Hayata is a verb.
Hayata is a verb, so it's not a where.
So aye is where?
I must have seen that somewhere else.
Aye.
Okay, so
Hayata is just the to be as feminine singular of haya.
okay, hayata. Then those are the words. These little words are what make me crazy. I don't know why they are the ones that I just get stuck on when I'm so literal or something. Okay, so I just would want to say where who, halach. Where did he walk? Right.
Where? Let's see here. How would you say that? Where Abraham walked. Yeah. So where?
And then where who? Halach. Where did he walk?
Where did he walk?
Yeah.
Where walk Abraham? Where?
Okay, so that is how you would do it. That's different. See, this is why. So that's, is that right? You'd put the walk first because it's a question, or why?
Yeah, because whenever you have a grammatical term on the starting your sentence, then that moves your verb forward. And I believe aye is one of those grammatical terms that does that for us. Word order.
In the word order. And where do I find that information?
So on page 60.
Okay.
Page 60. It doesn't list aye in there, but I believe it is one that does that. I can double check that by looking at a different lesson. Questions. No, it's not going to help me. I'm pretty sure that's right, but I may be.
Okay.
At the end of the day, it wouldn't matter. We could probably do it either way, and it would still work just fine.
Okay. Okay, so then since we're on page 61, that was a little confusing, but maybe I was making it too complicated.
61, okay.
So on Aleph, they're just trying to have you circle. That's what I wasn't sure, the noun and the predicate verb, and then figure out like where we're interpreting words, right? So it's like in Aleph, it's Vaha Nahash Haya or Hayt Hay. Okay, wait a minute. See, this is Haya or Haya.
Haya. So the first one is Haya.
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 Haya. Began.
Good.
So what we're trying to do was say which one would it be, and because serpent is masculine, it's Haya, the first one.
So what it wants you to do is says find and circle the subject, the subject noun, and the predicate verb in each example. So which one of those is the subject of the sentence?
The serpent.
Good. So you would circle that.
Yeah.
Then I want you to find the verb.
Okay, that's just Haya. It
Good.
was.
Then you circled that.
That's it.
That was it. Find and circle example.
And then what is the empty, insert empty set where you think it ought to be?
If there's no verb, then I want you to just put that little circle thing in there.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Some of these aren't going to have a verb.
Okay.
And then I want you to translate it.
Right. So the serpent was in the garden.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, the serpent was a living animal, a wild animal in the garden because of Haya. And the serpent was a Haya in the garden, a wild animal.
Okay, so was an animal. So the Haya is the animal?
The one with the Haya, the second one.
The second one. Oh, because the whole sentence is correct, right?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay. That's what I'm having trouble with. Okay. So I get it. Oh, okay. I see. So that's what I have trouble with because they're so similar. Of just seeing those on that, some of the most basic ones, I have the hardest time. Okay.
Okay, well, I got to write a note to myself. I think we need to look at the homework at the end of every class so we know what.
Just to know if we've kind of been on target, I think it'd be a good idea. So if I got like that, I totally did not see that. So how am I going to figure out, right?
All right. So that'll be a task that we do every week. It's a good thing to remember.
Okay. So given that, okay. So all you need to do is put the subject and then the verb and then the noun and then so that's completely correct. You're just missing stuff, but you just know that it's basically serpent was a wild animal in the garden, right? That's
Yeah,
really
all of these are good Hebrew sentences. The exercise here is just to identify the subject and the verb. That's the main purpose of this, is that you look at a sentence and you're able to find the subject right away and the verb right away.
Okay, and so the next one, it would be la Adam Hamar. He's to the man, he said.
Yeah, it's U la Adam Amar.
U la Adam
Amar.
Amar. Okay, I need a tutor to help me with this pronunciation.
Yeah, we'll
I'm
see.
trying to find a tutor. Do you know of a tutor that I can have to just help me go over the verbal part?
I'm looking at him on the screen.
On you? Okay. I'm
No,
not looking
not me. Well, I can help. I'd love
or
to.
to Jacob.
Jacob is your primary.
Is my help to help me do that. But I need to like have more time. Like I think I need to put like an hour a day where I'm just with somebody talking about or how to do this or have a talking class or hear it more.
Yeah, so we have some flexibility with our TAs to have them get paid to do that sort of work. If it's beyond the scope of the TA job, then if Jacob wants to, I mean, you could hire him. I don't know. If he doesn't want to, I know other people that would like to be hired out. But between Jacob and I'm sure we can find time to help you read out loud, right?
Yeah, because that's the hardest thing for me. I mean, even like obviously I'm having trouble, and then just to try to remember it. That's why the Quizlet. I'll go back to the Quizlet for this week and see how much I can get with that because that helped a lot last week. Yeah. I did that all the time, but.
Well, Jacob, can you share just a little bit? I know you study with other people in the library and stuff. Can you respond to her need?
Yeah, I'm more than willing to help, especially on Thursdays. I'll be there all day.
Okay.
But if you're just willing to meet like on a Zoom room meeting like this, I can meet here and there and just go over readings. I'd just probably take something from Scripture, like Jonah, and we could just walk through how to pronounce a verse a day or something like that.
Yeah, okay. Or even going through the reading and talking, even if the reading that we had, like the assignment that we did in class, even if that was recorded somewhere and we can go back and listen to it, that would be helpful for me. Does that make sense?
I think it is recorded.
It is recorded?
I'm going to do some work on that because there are some resources. So
that would be huge. Just so I kind of got really familiar with all like the story. So because tomorrow I'm sure you're going to say things and it's like really, I noticed last week, even though, I was prepared on the questions and I knew those, but when you were speaking, I got it right. But it took me time to realize what it was. I'm thinking of all these different, I've got some of the nouns, but then when I realized, he was talking about leaves, but it took me a while to get there. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, so I'm happy that you got there. That's great. But, we'd love to help you out. I think Thursdays, what do you always get to class like right around 6 or are you there early?
No, actually Thursdays are good days for me. And this month, Jacob, we don't have, but I could go into class anyway. But I generally have a good period where I do some work. It's the period like from 2:30. So I'm actually every Thursday afternoon also, and that's helped. Jacob's been there. So that'll work. I can continue to do that. So I just want to work a little bit more on my project or not feel like right now I feel like I'm just dog paddling to keep up and not getting a chance to really work on anything else. I'm trying to figure, make a little more room.
Yeah, I hear you.
To do that and to feel more comfortable with it. So, yeah. Anyway, so that's good. Okay, so I think I'll go through this. I think I'm okay. I'll go through and then maybe I'll be there tomorrow. I don't know, Jacob, are you going to be there tomorrow afternoon? Because we don't have our class at 1.
Yeah, I'll be there.
Okay.
I'll be there probably around
3.
starting till like noon.
Oh, you'll be there at noon?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And then I have something from 2:30 to 3:30, but
okay. Well, I'll just be there too. I'll just see you tomorrow. And so maybe I can see if I have any more questions or go over my homework. That'd be good. So, okay. All right. Thank you.
Yep. Toda rabah. Thank you.
Toda rabah. Okay. Bye.
Yeah. If you want to leave.
How do I leave?
Let's see, so there's a button.
Oh, back to the meeting. There we go. Okay, bye.
Button in the bottom right-hand corner of my screen that says "End Meeting." It probably says "Leave Meeting."
Mine's at the top, but your screen was covering it, so I've got it. Okay, bye.
All right. See ya. Cool. Well, I got another meeting in like 2 minutes, Jacob. But any thoughts or questions, concerns at this point?
No, nothing. Oh gosh, here it goes again. Yeah, nothing too much. Just I'll just try to be there more and try to help people answer the homework questions than just.
Okay. Are you spending quite a bit of time on Thursdays tutoring, like helping people with Hebrew homework?
Not too much. I'm just like kind of in the library doing my own work, and then if they do have a question, I'll just stop for like 5 or 10 minutes and answer it.
Well, what I'd like to do, you spend 3 hours, in class, 1 hour here in the Zoom meeting, and then 2 hours in the evening. I think I have up to 6 hours that I can have you be paid for Hebrew work.
Okay.
I'd like to have you get paid for an hour of that, where you have like an office hour where you just sit in the library. You can, if nobody's there, you do your own work. But if people show up, that you'd be, free and available to help them out. But then you get paid for it at least.
Yeah.
Like you're already doing that, but we might as well get you paid for it.
Yeah, I might start taking one of those. There's like study rooms down there that has a whiteboard.
Cool.
I might start reserving. Like, I'll be here 4 to 5 on Thursdays. If you need to come in, and we can go over stuff like that. So
cool. And so, do you just report hours every week, or how do you report your hours?
Yeah, so there's like a online timesheet that I punch in and then punch out, and it records each week. So
okay, cool. So, well, just go ahead and put in 4 hours this week, and because I know you've been spending more time helping other people out, so go ahead and do that. I've been told I have up to 6 hours, so I think that.
Okay.
Is that something that you want to do? I mean, does that sound good?
Yeah, that sounds perfectly fine. I'm just trying to help people, I guess.
I know you're just trying to help, but since we have the resources, we might as well make it more official, and you can get paid for it. If it doesn't work 1 week, if you got to show up late or whatever, that's fine. Then just report the 3 hours, and But we'll tell the class. I'll tell the class a little bit about how that'll work tomorrow.
Okay.
Cool. All right, man. Well, thanks a lot for being here, and we'll see you tomorrow.
See you tomorrow.
Cool.